The most feared mafia boss in the city was dying above his own casino, and the only person who knew why was the fat laundry woman everyone kept forgetting was in the room. Cassian Vey lay in the private medical suite on the top floor of the Black Lantern, shaking so hard the gold ring on his finger clicked against the bed rail. Below him, the casino glowed like a dream made for people with too much money and too many secrets. Crystal lights glittered over velvet tables. Champagne moved through the crowd on silver trays. Men laughed beside roulette wheels while deciding who would live through the week. Women in silk leaned close to whispers that could ruin judges, bankers, police captains, and husbands. The Black Lantern never truly slept. It hummed, breathed, counted, watched. And above all of it, the man who owned its shadows could not keep water in his stomach. Cassian turned his head toward the chandelier hanging over the medical bed. Its light had begun to wear a strange yellow-green ring, a halo that pulsed at the edges every time his heart stumbled. He hated that. He hated weakness more than pain. Pain was honest. Weakness invited people to stand closer than they had earned. His fingers curled in the white sheet as another wave moved through him, hot first, then cold, then hollow, as if his body had become a building where someone kept turning off the power floor by floor. One monitor gave a sharp little warning sound. The doctor nearest to him flinched. Cassian noticed, even half-blind with fever, even with sweat running into his hair. He noticed fear before anything else. It was the language men spoke before their mouths opened. "He's misfiring again," one doctor said. "No," another answered too quickly. "It's artifact from movement." Cassian tried to laugh, but all that came out was a rough breath. "If you are going to lie," he whispered, "do it farther from my bed." Both doctors went silent. Near the glass wall, Nico Reyes turned from the view of the city. Nico had a face built for bad news and a temper that made grown men lower their eyes. He had been Cassian's right hand for 11 years, which meant he had cleaned up betrayals, bodies, debts, family wars, and the kind of mistakes that never reached police reports. But he had never seen Cassian like this. Never pale, never trembling, never unable to sit up without two men helping him. That was what frightened Nico, not death itself. Death was an old employee in their world. What frightened him was that Cassian Vey, who could make judges change their rulings with a quiet phone call, could not command his own heart to beat correctly. The medical suite smelled of alcohol wipes, expensive soap, sweat, and the bitter black tonic sitting untouched on the side table. A porcelain cup, a slice of lemon floating on top, a thin curl of steam still rising from it, because Rowan Pike, the new wellness chef, had delivered it only 15 minutes earlier with his soft smile and clean white sleeves. He had called it a stomach blend, something to settle the body, something old and natural, something gentle. Cassian had drunk it every morning for almost 3 weeks because his doctors were too busy hunting rare poisons to question a kitchen ritual that looked harmless. Men often feared daggers and missed teaspoons. The door to the suite opened softly. A laundry cart rolled in before the woman pushing it did. Marlo Bell kept her eyes down, because that was safer, but she still saw everything. That was the first thing people never understood about her. Looking down was not the same as not looking. She saw the wrinkle in the doctor's cuff where he had been tugging at it from nerves. She saw Nico's right hand open and close at his side. She saw the nurse quietly replacing the basin near Cassian's bed, even though no one had mentioned he had vomited again. She saw the porcelain cup on the table, still half full, and the dark line inside it where the tonic had stained the white rim. No one greeted her. No one ever did, unless they wanted something moved or cleaned or replaced. Marlo was used to it. She was 31 years old, broad-hipped, round-faced, and quiet in a building that respected only sharp suits, sharper bones, and louder voices. The women at the front desk wore black dresses and red lipstick. The cocktail servers moved like they had been poured into the room. Marlowe wore grey cotton, white sneakers, and a name tag most guests never read. Staff saw her as useful. Guests saw her as part of the wall. Dangerous men saw her as nothing at all. That had hurt when she was younger. Now she had learned there was a strange kind of power in being underestimated. People did not hide things from furniture. She moved to the hamper near the corner and began collecting the sheets the nurse had folded away from the bed. She kept her hands slow. Fast movements made guards look at you. Slow movements made you disappear. Cassian groaned under his breath. The sound was low and angry, more insulted than helpless, as if his body had offended him. Marlowe glanced up before she could stop herself. His eyes were open, dark and unfocused, fixed on the chandelier. "The lights," he said. The lead doctor leaned closer. "Too bright?" Cassian swallowed. "Green." The doctor looked at the chandelier, then at the monitor, then at the other doctors, as if the room might vote on what Cassian was allowed to see. Visual disturbances can happen with neurological stress. "They're halos," Cassian said, "around the bulbs." Marlowe's fingers stopped on a sheet. No one noticed her pause. That was the mercy of being unseen. She looked at the cup again. Bitter smell. Black liquid. Lemon on top to hide something sharp and earthy underneath. Licorice. Not candy licorice. Not sweet rope from a store, but the root her mother had once kept in a tin near the stove, because someone at church had said it helped digestion. Her mother had liked old remedies. Teas for sleep. Leaves for swelling. Roots for the stomach. Marlowe had learned to read labels because her mother trusted kindness more than chemistry, and the world punished that. Her mother had taken heart medicine after the first episode. Little white tablets lined up in a pill organizer. The doctor had warned them about salt, dehydration, other drugs and herbs. He had said licorice root could pull potassium low and make certain heart medicines dangerous. Marlowe remembered that because she had written it down in block letters on a yellow pad while her mother smiled and said, "Baby, you worry like an old woman." 3 months later, Marlowe had found her mother on the kitchen floor with a teacup broken beside her hand. Not because of poison, not because of murder, because people thought natural meant safe, and nobody important had checked the little tin by the stove. Cassian's monitor chirped again. This time one of the doctors could not pretend not to hear it. "What medication is he on?" Marlowe asked. Every head turned toward her. The silence that followed was almost gentle, almost confused, as if a chair had spoken. The lead doctor straightened. His name was Dr. Pell, and he had silver hair, soft hands, and the calm cruelty of men used to being believed. "Excuse me?" Marlowe realized she was holding a sheet against her chest. She lowered it slowly. Her heartbeat climbed into her throat, but her voice came out steady enough. "His heart medicine. What is he taking?" Dr. Pell stared at her. "You need to leave." "I'm just asking because he said halos." "Marlowe," the nurse whispered, not unkindly. "Go." But Marlowe looked at Cassian again. His face had turned slightly toward her. His eyes were not fully clear, but something in them had sharpened. Even dying, he hated being discussed like he was not present. Even dying, he had noticed that she was asking a different question than everyone else. "What does that mean?" Nico asked. Dr. Pell turned quickly. "It means your laundry staff is interrupting a medical emergency." Marlowe felt heat rise in her cheeks. She knew that kind of tone. It had followed her most of her life. At school, in clinics, in offices, in stores where clerks assumed she could not afford anything beautiful. That tone said, "You are too big, too poor, too plain, too ordinary to know something I missed." Usually she swallowed her words when that tone arrived. Usually she reminded herself that rent was real, and pride did not pay bills. But Cassian made a low sound and gripped the rail as another wave hit him, and the smell from the cup drifted across the room again, dark and sweet and wrong. "It smells like licorice root," Marlowe said. Dr. Pell's face hardened. "Enough." And he gets worse after he drinks it. Nico's gaze moved to the cup. Marlowe pressed on before fear could drag her backward. I bring linens here every morning. He drinks that tonic after breakfast. About 20 minutes later, he shakes harder. He vomits. His pulse gets strange. Today he's seeing yellow-green halos around the lights. If he's taking certain heart medicine, that matters. The room went still in a different way. Dr. Pell laughed once, but it had no humor in it. Are we now accepting diagnosis from housekeeping? Laundry, Marlowe said softly. What? I'm laundry, not housekeeping. Nico stepped closer to the table and picked up the cup. He sniffed it. His expression did not change, but his eyes did. What is in this? A stomach tonic, Dr. Pell said, prepared by the wellness kitchen. We have already tested Mr. Vey for known toxins. Not toxins, Marlowe said. Interactions. Dr. Pell looked at her as if she had put dirty shoes on an altar. You heard a word once and think it applies to this room. Marlowe's hands curled around the sheet. She wanted to stop. She wanted to back out with the cart and let the important people be important. She wanted her heart to stop kicking her ribs, but she looked at Cassian's hand against the rail. It was trembling badly now. This man had probably ruined lives, maybe ended them, maybe ordered things no one should survive ordering. Marlowe did not know, but she knew the sound of a body being misunderstood. She knew what it looked like when people searched for lightning and missed the open wire at their feet. My mother took heart medicine, she said. It built up wrong when her potassium dropped. She saw halos. Her pulse skipped. She got sick in waves. Licorice root can lower potassium. If that tonic has it, and if he's on the wrong medication, you might not find poison, because nobody poisoned the blood directly. They poisoned the routine. The last word seemed to land harder than the rest. Nico turned slowly toward Dr. Pell. Test it. Dr. Pell stiffened. We are not wasting time chasing kitchen herbs because a laundry woman has memories. Nico crossed the room in 2 steps. He did not shout. That made him worse. You have had 3 days, 8 doctors, and machines that cost more than my first neighborhood. He is still dying. Test it. There are protocols. Nico smiled a little. Nobody in the room liked it. I am about to become a protocol. Dr. Pell looked toward Cassian, maybe hoping the dying man would rescue him from the insult. Cassian's lips moved. Nico leaned down. What did he say? The nurse asked. Nico straightened and looked at Marlowe. He said, test the damn cup. Marlowe's breath left her quietly. After that, the suite changed. The doctors moved faster, but not with confidence, with panic hidden under clipped orders. A nurse drew more blood. Someone called the lab downstairs. Someone else took the cup away in a sealed bag. Nico sent 2 guards to the kitchen and told them Rowan Pike was not to leave the Black Lantern. Dr. Pell pretended it had been his idea to check the potassium and medication levels. Men like him often stole credit before the truth even arrived. Marlowe stepped back toward the wall, suddenly aware of how badly her hands were shaking. Now that she had spoken, invisibility did not return as easily. Nico looked at her once, long and unreadable, and she did not know whether she had saved herself or stepped into a room with no exits. You stay, he said. Marlowe blinked. I have linens downstairs. The sheets can wait. No, they can't. The South Tower is short after the poker suite party, and if I don't turn them before 3, Rosa will be down 12 king sets by evening. Nico stared at her. It was the wrong time to discuss sheets. Marlowe knew that. But work had its own gravity. The hotel did not stop being a hotel because a king was dying upstairs. People still slept. People still spilled wine. People still bled on towels and called it lipstick. A strange look crossed Nico's face. Not amusement exactly, but something close to respect pulled through exhaustion. You really think about everything, he said. No, Marlowe answered. Just the things people yell about later. From the bed, Cassian made a faint sound. It might have been a laugh if he had possessed enough strength to finish it. The next hour stretched thin and bright. Outside the windows, rain slid down the glass, turning the city into a smear of gold and black. Below, the casino kept shining. Marlowe could feel it through the floor, the quiet thunder of money moving, cards snapping, elevators rising and falling, lives crossing one another without touching. She stood near the laundry cart because she did not know where else to stand. Twice, Dr. Pell told her she could wait in the hall. Twice, Nico said she stayed. The second time, he did not even look up from his phone. The first lab call came in low and urgent. Dr. Pell listened, went pale, and asked them to repeat it. That was how Marlowe knew before he said anything. People only asked for repeated numbers when the numbers had already accused them. Nico stepped closer. Say it out loud. Dr. Pell lowered the phone. Potassium is critically low. The nurse put one hand to her mouth. And the medication level? Nico asked. Dr. Pell did not answer fast enough. Nico's voice dropped. Doctor, it's elevated, Dr. Pell said. Dangerously. Marlowe closed her eyes for 1 second, not because she was relieved, because she hated being right about this kind of thing. Being right meant no one had listened soon enough. The second call came from the kitchen search. The tonic contained licorice root, hawthorn, bitter orange, activated charcoal, and other herbs written on a wellness card in clean little letters. A beautiful list. A deadly list, when placed beside the wrong medication and swallowed every morning by a man whose doctors had assumed expensive danger must arrive in expensive ways. Rowan Pike was not in the kitchen when the guards arrived. His locker was empty. His employee badge had been left on top of folded chef whites. That, more than anything, made Nico go very still. Cassian slipped into a worse rhythm just before sunset. The monitors screamed. The doctors surged around him. Marlowe was pushed back toward the glass. She saw only pieces after that. Nico's hand against the wall. Dr. Pell shouting numbers. A nurse moving fast with a syringe. Cassian's body arching once, hard, then dropping back to the bed. The city lights behind him flickered through rain. For one terrible moment, the Black Lantern felt like a palace holding its breath. Marlowe did not pray often. Prayer had become complicated after her mother died, but she found herself whispering, "Come on," under her breath. Not because Cassian Vey deserved saving more than anyone else. Not because he was good. She did not know if he was good. Men like him were rarely simple enough for that word. She whispered it because a person was in front of her, and his life had been hanging from a mistake no one wanted to see. Slowly, the rhythm changed. Not fixed, not safe, but less wild. The doctors moved with a different urgency now, one that had direction. They treated the potassium. They stopped the medication. They flushed, corrected, watched, adjusted. Cassian's breathing eased by degrees. The greenish cast faded from his skin. The trembling did not vanish, but it softened. Nico stood at the foot of the bed and watched as if he could threaten death itself into walking back out the door. Marlowe realized she was still holding the same sheet. She had twisted it so tightly it looked like a rope. When the worst had passed, Dr. Pell turned toward her. His face was gray. "This does not mean—" Nico cut him off. "Stop talking." The doctor closed his mouth. Marlowe almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then she remembered the way he had looked at her when she first spoke, and the pity dried up, not into cruelty, just into clarity. Some people were not sorry when they were wrong. They were only frightened that someone smaller had witnessed it. By night, Cassian slept. Not the violent, broken sleep from before, but something deeper, medically guarded and uneasy. The suite dimmed, the chandelier was turned off. Lamps burned low along the walls. The room looked less like a hospital now, and more like a chapel for a dangerous saint nobody fully believed in. Nico sent away 3 doctors and kept the 2 who had been useful after they stopped arguing. He stationed guards at every private elevator. He ordered Rowan Pike found alive, if possible, because a dead man could not answer questions. Marlowe finally reached for her cart. Nico looked at her. "Where are you going?" "Laundry. You saved his life. And the sheets are still dirty." This time, Nico did laugh. It was small and tired, and gone quickly. "Do you understand what you just stepped into?" Marlowe looked at Cassian sleeping beneath white blankets. Without his voice, without his stare, without all the rumors wrapped around him, he looked almost human. That was somehow more unsettling. "No," she said, "but I understand my shift ended 40 minutes ago, and Rosa docks late returns." "Nobody is docking you for anything. You don't know Rosa. I know Cassian Vey." Marlowe pushed the cart toward the door. "Then you know he'll want clean sheets when he wakes up." Nico did not stop her that time. The service elevator took her down through the hidden spine of the Black Lantern, past the private kitchen level, past surveillance, past the executive offices where men with quiet voices were probably already deciding who had known what and for how long. The doors opened to the laundry floor, and heat rolled over her like breath from a sleeping animal. Industrial washers turned behind glass, dryers hummed, steam fogged the high windows. Bins of towels waited in crooked lines. Someone had left a radio playing old soul music near the folding station. Rosa turned when Marlowe pushed the cart in. "Where have you been?" Marlowe looked down at the twisted sheet in her hands. There was no easy answer, none that belonged in the laundry room, none that would not sound insane beside detergent jugs and dryer lint. "Penthouse delay," she said. Rosa narrowed her eyes. "You look like you saw a ghost." "No," Marlowe said, and began sorting the sheets. Just a man who almost became one. For the rest of the night, no one in laundry knew what to do with her silence. Marlowe worked like always, loaded washers, checked stains, folded pillowcases, counted missing towels. Her body moved through familiar tasks, while her mind stayed upstairs with the porcelain cup, the green halos, the monitor's cry, and Cassian Vey's hand shaking against the rail. Around midnight, 2 guards came down and stood near the laundry entrance. They did not speak to her. They did not need to. By then, news had begun moving through the back halls. Not the full truth. The Black Lantern did not leak truth. It leaked shapes. The boss had nearly died. The wellness chef had vanished. Nico Reyes was hunting someone, and Marlowe Bell from laundry had been taken upstairs and brought back alive. People looked at her differently after that. Not kindly, not yet, just differently, as if furniture had turned its head. Near dawn, Marlowe sat alone on an overturned linen bin with a paper cup of coffee cooling in both hands. Her feet hurt, her back ached, her uniform smelled of bleach and hospital fear. For the first time all night, there was nothing urgent in front of her. That was when the shaking started. Not dramatic, just a small tremor in her fingers that made the coffee ripple. She thought of her mother's kitchen, the broken cup, the yellow pad with careful notes. She thought of every doctor who had spoken over her, every landlord who had called her sweetheart while raising rent, every guest who had dropped towels on the floor beside her instead of handing them to her, every man in a beautiful suit who had discussed ugly things because he believed she could not understand the language of power. Maybe they were right in one way. Marlowe did not understand power the way they did. She did not know how to make a judge afraid or move a union with a phone call. She did not know which politicians belonged to which family, or which casino boss smiled at dinner while planning murder over dessert. But she understood patterns. She understood what changed after something new arrived. She understood that rich men called care by many names when they wanted to hide control. She understood that bodies told the truth before mouths did. She understood that people who looked invisible could stand very close to secrets. The elevator opened at the end of the laundry hall. Nico stepped out alone. The room went quiet around him. Washers still turned, dryers still hummed, but every person suddenly became careful with their hands. Nico did not look at any of them. His eyes found Marlo on the linen bin. "He's awake," Nico said. Marlo stood too quickly, and her knee bumped the coffee cup. It tipped, spilled across the floor, and ran in a thin brown line toward the drain. No one laughed. "That's good," she said. "He asked for you." Marlo stared at him. "Why?" Nico's face gave away nothing. He said, "Bring me the woman with the laundry cart." Every sound in the room seemed to fade behind those words. Marlo looked down at herself. Grey uniform, tired shoes, bleach on one sleeve. A small coffee stain spreading near the hem where the cup had splashed. She did not look like someone summoned by Cassian Vey. She looked like someone who should be carrying folded towels to room service before breakfast guests began complaining. "I didn't do anything special," she said. Nico's gaze moved over her face, and for the first time, his voice held no impatience at all. "That may be why he wants to see you." The ride back up felt longer than before. Marlo stood beside Nico in the private elevator, while gold numbers climbed above the door. Her reflection stared back from the polished wall, round and pale and tired. She tried to smooth her hair, then stopped because there was no fixing herself into the kind of woman who belonged upstairs. Maybe that was the point. Maybe belonging was another trick people used to keep doors closed. When the elevator opened, the penthouse was quiet, not peaceful. Quiet in the way a room becomes after violence has stepped out but left its coat behind. Guards lined the hall. Doctors spoke in low voices near the far wall. The bitter cup was gone. The chandelier remained dark. Cassian Vey was awake. He lay propped against pillows, weaker than any rumor would have allowed, but his eyes were clear now, dark, steady, and focused entirely on Marlo. Without the fever, his face was sharper, not handsome in a soft way, handsome like a locked door, like a knife placed carefully on velvet. He watched her cross the room with the unsettling patience of a man who had spent his life learning where people hid their lies. Marlo stopped beside the bed, leaving plenty of space between them. Cassian studied her name tag, then her face, then her hands, which she clasped before he could see them tremble. "Marlo Bell," he said. His voice was rough, but it still changed the air. "Yes, sir." A faint line appeared between his brows. "Do not call me that." She blinked. "What should I call you?" "Cassian." Every doctor in the room seemed to hate that answer. Marlo did not use the name, not yet. Names were not free just because powerful men offered them. She glanced toward the monitors instead. "You look less green." Nico made a sound near the wall. It might have been a cough. Cassian stared at her. Then something almost like amusement touched his mouth. "I was told you saved my life." I pointed at a cup. "You argued with 7 doctors and my most violent employee while I was actively dying." "I didn't argue with him," she said, nodding toward Nico. "He listened faster." Nico looked pleased by this in a way that made him look more dangerous, not less. Cassian's gaze did not leave her. Why? Marlo knew what he meant. Not why had Nico listened, not why had the doctors failed. Why had she spoken at all? Why had she risked being fired, mocked, removed, maybe worse, for a man whose name frightened half the city? She thought about giving him a polite answer, something about duty, something about noticing symptoms, something that would let everyone in the room relax. Instead, exhaustion made her honest. "I don't love men like you," she said quietly, "but I hate watching people die from stupidity." The room froze. Nico slowly turned his head toward Cassian, as if checking whether they were all about to lose power. Cassian looked at Marlo for a long moment, long enough for her to regret the sentence, but not enough to apologize for it. Then he laughed. It was weak and brief and clearly hurt him, but it was real. The sound moved through the room like a match struck in darkness. "No," he said softly. "I imagine you don't." Marlowe shifted her weight. "I should get back downstairs." "You should not." "I have work." "You have new work." Her stomach tightened. "I don't want a reward." "This is not a reward." "That's usually what people say before giving one." Cassian's eyes warmed by one small, dangerous degree. "Everyone around me is paid to flatter, hide, perform, or fear. You did none of those things." "I was afraid." "Yes," he said, "but you were useful anyway." She did not know why that felt better than being called brave. Brave sounded like something people said after danger had passed, so they did not have to ask why danger had been there in the first place. Useful was cleaner, less pretty, more true. Cassian reached toward the side table and failed to lift the glass there. Nico stepped forward, but Marlowe moved first without thinking. She picked up the glass, held the straw toward Cassian, and waited. She did not put it to his mouth. She did not fuss. She simply held it where he could choose. Cassian noticed that too. He drank slowly, then leaned back, breath uneven. His eyes remained on her. "Marlowe Bell," he said, quieter now. "Someone turned my breakfast into an execution." "Yes. Someone inside my hotel helped them. Probably. And every person trained to protect me looked in the wrong direction." Marlowe said nothing. Cassian's mouth curved, not into a smile exactly, but into the idea of one. Except the woman, no one was watching. Outside the windows, morning began to turn the city silver. Below them, the black lantern prepared to open another day of polished lies, washed sheets, hidden money, and quiet sins. But something had shifted during the night. Marlowe could feel it, though she did not yet know whether it was luck or a trap. The invisible woman had been seen by the most dangerous man in the building. And somewhere beyond the locked kitchens, missing employee badge and empty locker, whoever had planned Cassian Vey's death was about to learn that their first mistake had not been the tonic. Their first mistake had been assuming the laundry woman would not notice. Cassian kept her in the penthouse for the rest of the morning, not beside his bed like a nurse, and not near the door like staff waiting to be dismissed, but in the chair closest to the windows, where the whole city looked small enough to fit under his hand. Marlowe sat there with her knees together, her hands folded in her lap, and her laundry shoes planted on a carpet so expensive she was afraid the bleach on her soles might leave a crime scene. Doctors came and went. Nico stepped in and out with phone calls, each one quieter and more dangerous than the last. Guards reported that Rowan Pike had vanished through a service exit minutes before the kitchen search. His apartment was empty. His bank account had been cleared. His passport was gone. He had prepared his escape too well to be a frightened chef, acting alone, and not well enough to be the person who planned it. Cassian listened to every update without raising his voice. That unsettled Marlowe more than shouting would have. Sick men snapped. Powerful men threatened. Cassian simply absorbed facts and placed them somewhere cold inside himself. Now and then, his gaze moved back to Marlowe, not softly, not kindly exactly, but with a kind of attention she was not used to carrying. Most people looked at her and decided the story before she spoke. Cassian looked at her as if he had found a locked drawer in a room he thought he owned. By noon, he was strong enough to sit upright without help, though the effort left sweat at his temples. Nico wanted him to rest. Dr. Pell wanted him watched. Marlowe wanted to go downstairs, change her stained uniform, and pretend her name had not become dangerous overnight. Cassian ignored all three wishes. "You saw the tonic," he said. Marlowe blinked. "Everyone saw the tonic." "No, everyone saw a cup." She looked toward the table where the cup had been, though it was gone now, sealed away as evidence. It smelled wrong. Wrong how? Too bitter to be for comfort, too covered up to be honest. Nico turned slightly from the window. Cassian's mouth moved, barely. You judge drinks by morality? I judge people that way too, Marlowe said, then wished she had not. But Cassian only watched her more closely. And what do you judge me to be? Marlowe did not answer right away. Outside, the rain had thinned into a silver mist. The casino roof below gleamed black. She could see delivery trucks backing into the rear entrance, workers moving crates, men in suits pretending not to watch other men in suits. The black lantern looked clean from above, almost beautiful. That was the trouble with distance. It made ugly things shine. I don't know yet, she said, but you listen better than your doctor. Nico's eyes dropped to hide something. Dr. Pell did not hide anything. His jaw tightened with insult. Cassian looked pleased, though pleased on him was a dangerous weather. Then you will listen for me. Marlowe turned back. What does that mean? It means you are no longer laundry. Her chest tightened. I need that job. You will be paid more. That is not what I said. For a moment, the room became still. People around Cassian were not used to hearing the word no unless it came from enemies or dead men. Marlowe felt every eye shift toward her, waiting to see whether she understood the line she had stepped on. She did. She understood lines very well. She had spent most of her life living behind them. Cassian lifted one hand slightly, stopping Nico before he could speak. Explain. Marlowe swallowed. Laundry is honest. Dirty sheets come in, clean sheets go out. If something is missing, I can count it. If something is stained, I can treat it. If someone yells, I know what they're yelling about. This, she glanced around the medical suite, the guards, the city, the quiet machine of power hidden under expensive carpet. This is not honest. No, Cassian said, it is not. And people who get pulled into dishonest rooms usually don't get to leave clean. That was the first time his expression truly changed. Not much, just a small flicker around the eyes, as if he had expected greed, fear, gratitude, maybe pride, but not that. He leaned back against the pillows, tired suddenly, but still very awake. Everyone in this room is trained to protect me, flatter me, profit from me, or lie to me. You saw one cup and asked the question that kept me alive. I am not offering you a costume, Marlowe Bell. I am offering you a better place to stand while you do what you already do. And if I say no? Nico looked at Cassian. The doctors looked at the floor. Cassian looked only at her. Then you go back downstairs, he said, with a raise, protection, and the right to pretend you were never noticed. Marlowe believed half of that. It was the half about being noticed that worried her. Once a person like Cassian Vey saw you, you probably stayed seen even from another floor. Still, something in the answer loosened the hard knot behind her ribs. He had not said she owed him. He had not said she belonged near him now. He had not dressed control as gratitude. For the moment, that mattered. What would I actually do? She asked. Cassian's eyes sharpened. Watch. So Marlowe watched. That evening, the black lantern became a different kind of animal. On the surface, nothing changed. The casino opened under golden lights. The restaurant served oysters on ice and red wine, older than some of the dealers. Guests moved through marble halls, laughing too loudly, losing too much, telling themselves the city's darkness was only exciting because they could leave it whenever they wanted. But beneath the polished floor, Cassian's people moved with purpose. The kitchen was searched again. Rowan's recipes were pulled. Deliveries were checked. Camera footage was reviewed. Every person who had touched the tonic was held in quiet rooms and asked questions by men whose voices never rose. Marlowe did not sit in the interrogation rooms. She did not need to. She sat in a small office off the service corridor with Nico, 3 monitors, a stack of staff schedules, and a cup of coffee that had gone cold before she remembered to drink it. Camera footage flickered in front of her. Rowan walking through the kitchen. Rowan greeting servers. Rowan carrying a tray into the private elevator. Rowan smiling at guests near the spa entrance. A handsome man, calm and mild, with the kind of face people trusted because it looked too soft to hide cruelty. "There," Marlowe said. Nico leaned closer. "What?" "His shoes." On screen, Rowan entered the kitchen at 6:16 in clean white shoes. At 7:02, after delivering Cassian's tonic, he returned with the left sole stained dark at the edge. Nico frowned. "Could be kitchen spill." "No, he steps around spills. Watch his feet. He cares about staying clean. But here," she pointed as Rowan crossed near the loading doors, "he doesn't look down. He's distracted. Something happened between the elevator and the kitchen." Nico rewound the footage. They checked the hall outside the private elevator. Rowan stepped out with the empty tray and turned not toward the kitchen, but toward the old cigar lounge, a room closed for renovations. He was inside for 37 seconds. When he came out, he was pale. Nico sent guards to the cigar lounge. Behind a loose wall panel, they found a burner phone, a folded payment slip, and a tiny glass vial wrapped in a cocktail napkin. Not poison. Residue from the tonic, kept as proof. A delivery had been made. A payment had been collected. Someone wanted Rowan controlled even after Cassian died. The payment slip led to an entertainment vendor used by one of Cassian's casino bosses, Blaze Kincaid. Blaze ran 3 gaming floors, 2 private clubs, and enough dirty accounts to build a small country out of lies. He was loud in rooms where Cassian was not present, and respectful in rooms where Cassian was. Marlowe knew him by sight. Everyone in the service corridors did. He was the sort of man who slapped waiters on the shoulder too hard and called women sweetheart when he forgot their names, which was often. Nico wanted to bring him upstairs immediately. Cassian said no. His voice came through the speaker from the medical suite, weak but steady. "Let him think I am closer to death than I am." Nico's jaw tightened. "He paid to kill you." "He paid someone," Cassian said. "That may not make him the hand holding the leash." Marlowe looked at the payment slip again. The amount was high, but not bold. Enough to buy Rowan, not enough to purchase a war. And Blaze was greedy, yes, but greed did not always have the nerve to strike a king unless fear stood behind it with a knife. "He's nervous," she said. Nico glanced at her. "Who?" "Blaze. I've cleaned the private dining rooms after his meetings. He leaves his napkins shredded when Serena Vale visits." The speaker went silent. Nico's eyes narrowed. "You know Serena Vale?" "I know who makes the room smell like white flowers and fear." Cassian's voice came low through the line. "Tell me." Marlowe shifted in her chair. "Blaze talks over everyone when he's with his own men. When Serena is there, he laughs too much, drinks too fast. He touches his collar like it's too tight. Last month, after she left, he broke a glass in the restroom and told a guard to clean it before anyone saw blood. I was already in the stall replacing towels." Nico stared at her. "You were in a restroom while Blaze Kincaid was bleeding and talking business?" "I had a towel cart. Men say anything near towel carts." Something quiet moved over Nico's face. Not humor now. Understanding. By midnight, Cassian ordered a private summit for the following evening. Officially, it was to reassure the families that he was alive enough to prevent panic, but ill enough to consider a temporary council. Unofficially, it was bait. Blaze would come because ambition would drag him there. Serena Vale would come because she would not trust an ally to watch the body unless she saw the breathing herself. Every major crime leader in the city would sit beneath the chandeliers of the Black Lantern's closed ballroom and discuss the future of Cassian Vey, while Cassian himself listened. Marlowe spent the next day sleeping badly in a guest room she did not ask for. It had a bed wider than her apartment kitchen, a bathtub with gold fixtures, and towels so white they looked accused. She woke every hour, certain someone would tell her a mistake had been made, and she should return to the laundry floor. Instead, a black dress arrived at 3 in the afternoon. Simple, soft, long-sleeved, without sequins or jewels. Beside it sat plain black flats, not heels. Marlowe stared at them for a long time. Someone had noticed she stood all day. Someone had noticed she would not want to look like decoration. She did not know whether that someone was Cassian, Nico, or a clever assistant. She only knew the dress fit, and that made her uneasy in a way that being insulted never had. At 7, the private ballroom filled with wolves wearing perfume. Marlowe stood near the bar with a tray in her hands. That had been her idea. She did not want to sit at Cassian's side like a warning flag. She wanted to be where she had always been, half-noticed, useful, close to thirst and loose hands. Men revealed themselves when reaching for drinks. Women too. Serena Vale entered last, dressed in pale gold, her silver blonde hair swept back, one hand resting on an ivory cane with a carved handle. She was beautiful, in a way that discouraged comfort. Her smile touched no part of her face it did not have to. Blaze Kincaid stood when he saw her, then seemed to remember he was not supposed to look afraid. Everyone expected Cassian to be carried in, or at least supported. Instead, the far doors opened and he walked in alone. Slowly, yes. Carefully, yes. But alone. The room changed before anyone spoke. Cassian wore black, his face still pale from illness, but his eyes were clear and cold. He looked less like a recovering man than a ghost who had decided death could wait. Nico followed a few steps behind him. 2 guards closed the doors. Marlowe felt the tray grow heavy in her hands. Cassian took the head seat at the highest table. "I hear many of you prepared kind words for my funeral." A few men laughed because they thought they were supposed to. The sound died quickly. Serena smiled. "The city was worried for you." "How generous of the city. We were told your condition was grave." "It was." Blaze reached for a drink from Marlowe's tray and nearly missed the glass. His fingers were damp. She lowered the tray an inch to help him without looking helpful. His eyes flicked to Serena before he drank. There it was again, fear traveling in a straight line. Cassian spoke for several minutes, calm and measured, about stability, loyalty, panic, and the foolishness of men who mistook a sickbed for an empty throne. While he spoke, Marlowe moved along the edge of the room. She watched who looked at Cassian and who looked away, who seemed relieved, who seemed disappointed, who adjusted cuffs, rings, collars, watch straps. Serena did not move much. She was too trained for that. But once, when Cassian mentioned the wellness kitchen, her gloved hand tightened around the cane. The glove was pale gold to match the dress. Near the thumb, almost hidden under the seam, was a brownish stain. Marlowe's breath slowed. Not wine, not coffee, darker, herbal, bitter. The same kind of stain that had marked the rim of Cassian's cup, the same ugly shadow left by the tonic when it dried. Cassian's eyes moved to her for half a second. Marlowe shifted the tray to her left hand and touched her own thumb twice against the silver edge. It was not a signal they had agreed on, not really. But Cassian understood patterns too, when he cared to learn them. His gaze moved from her hand to Serena's glove, then back to Serena's face. He stopped speaking. The silence opened like a door beneath the room. "Serena," he said gently, "did Rowan Pike scream when you made him understand what would happen if he refused?" Blaze went white. Serena's smile did not move. "Illness has made you poetic." "No, it made me patient." Cassian lifted one hand. Nico placed a folder on the table. Inside were photos from the cigar lounge, payment records, the burner phone, Rowan's employment file, kitchen logs, and a still image of Serena's private car entering the loading dock 2 weeks before the tonic began. Not enough for police, maybe. More than enough for the room they were in. Cassian looked at Blaze. "You paid the chef." Blaze shook his head too quickly. "Cassian, you paid him. Serena chose the method. Dorian moved the money. You expected me to die slowly enough that no one would see murder. Then you would all sit here, heavy with grief, and divide what I built." Serena turned her head slightly toward Blaze. It was barely a look. Blaze crumbled under it. "I didn't know it would be like that," he whispered. The room went so quiet Marlowe could hear rain starting against the windows. Serena sighed, almost sadly. Men always confess when they should admire their own silence. Then she moved. The cane was not only a cane. The handle twisted free with a whisper of metal. A thin blade flashed toward Cassian before Nico could cross the space. Cassian rose, but his body was still too slow, still wounded by weeks of poison. Marlowe did not think. She had been standing beside Serena with a tray full of untouched champagne. She swung the heavy silver tray with both hands and brought its rim down on Serena's wrist. The sound was sharp and ugly. The blade dropped. Serena gasped, more offended than hurt, and Marlowe hit her again, this time across the hand, hard enough to send the cane skidding under the table. Nico reached them then. Guards moved, chairs scraped, men shouted. Serena was forced to her knees with one arm twisted behind her back, but her eyes found Marlowe, bright with hatred and surprise. That look stayed with Marlowe, not the hatred. She had seen hatred before. It was the surprise. Serena Vale, elegant murderer, queen of quiet knives, had forgotten to fear the woman holding the drinks. Cassian stood at the head of the table, one hand braced against the wood. His face had gone pale from the effort, but his eyes burned. "Look carefully," he said to the room. No one moved. Cassian's voice lowered. "Every man here was watching me. The only person watching her was Marlowe Bell." Marlowe's hands began to shake around the bent tray. Serena laughed softly from the floor. "How touching. You found yourself a pet." Cassian took one step forward. Nico looked ready to end the conversation permanently. Marlowe spoke first. "No," she said. Her voice was not loud, but it carried, because the room wanted to know what kind of woman hit Serena Vale with serving silver. Pets are chosen because they're pretty and obedient. "I am neither." For one strange second, Cassian smiled. Serena's expression hardened. The summit did not end with a massacre. That was what everyone expected, which was why Cassian refused to give it to them. Blaze was taken away alive. Serena was held under guard. The city's crime leaders left the Black Lantern shaken, not because Cassian had survived, but because he had done something more frightening than kill quickly. He had let them see that he could be poisoned, weakened, betrayed, and still return with enough patience to uncover the hand behind the hand. And now he had someone beside him who saw the small things they had spent their lives dismissing. After that night, Marlowe stopped belonging to the laundry floor, though part of her heart stayed there among the heat, steam, and honest stains. Cassian gave her an office no larger than a closet at first, because she asked for one without windows and without anyone hovering. She filled it with ledgers, vendor files, invoices, room schedules, staff notes, and casino reports. To other people, it looked like paper. To Marlowe, it looked like weather. Money moved before violence. Shipments changed before alliances shifted. Fake entertainment contracts repeated the same odd spelling mistake across 3 companies. Casino payouts rose on nights when Serena's family hosted private dinners. Shipping insurance claims clustered around docks controlled by Dorian Vale. Dorian was younger than Serena, but not softer. He had inherited her pride without her patience. When Serena was captured, he did not negotiate first. He panicked. Panic made men sloppy, and sloppy men left trails. Marlowe followed them through numbers, while Cassian recovered strength hour by hour, day by day. He would come to her office late at night, against medical advice, and stand in the doorway while she spread papers across the floor. "You should be sleeping," she would say. "So should you. I'm not recovering from an assassination." "No," he said once. "You are planning the next one backward." She looked up at him from a circle of invoices and almost smiled. "I'm trying to prevent it." "That is what I said." They grew used to one another in small, strange ways. Cassian learned not to move papers from her piles. Marlowe learned that when he went silent, it did not always mean anger. Sometimes it meant pain. Sometimes it meant he was listening so completely that speech would only get in the way. He sent coffee to her office, but never stayed to watch her drink it. She corrected his assumptions without softening them first. He accepted that more easily than anyone expected, probably because Marlowe did not correct him to win. She corrected him because the truth was crooked, and she could not stand looking at it that way. The attack came during a storm so loud it made the hotel windows tremble. Power failed at 1:17 in the morning. The main casino generators kicked in after 6 seconds. The penthouse backup did not. That alone told Marlowe the attack was not outside the system. Someone had touched the private wiring. Red emergency lights washed the service halls. Elevators locked. Somewhere below, guests screamed, then laughed nervously when the slot machines went dark. Above them, armed men moved through stairwells with practiced silence. Marlowe was in her office when the lights cut. She had been studying a sequence of valet tickets tied to Dorian's men. The moment the backup failed, she reached for the heavy tailor's shears she kept in her laundry kit, not because she expected to fight, but because old habits kept tools close. The door opened before she reached the hall. Cassian stood there, gun in one hand, still breathing harder than he should have been. "Come with me. If the power failure starts at the penthouse panel, they want you upstairs. They want both of us." Marlowe understood that a second later, when glass broke somewhere above them. The first attackers came through the east terrace, black-clad shapes against rain and city light. Cassian and Nico met them near the private hall. The noise was terrible in the enclosed space. Gunshots cracked. Men shouted. Emergency lights flashed red over wet footprints and broken glass. Cassian moved like a man who remembered being unstoppable, but had not fully regained the body for it. He was still deadly, just not endless. Nico pushed Marlowe toward the library. "Lock the door." She did not argue, not because she was obedient, because getting in the way was not courage. She locked the library door and dragged a chair beneath the handle. Rain lashed the terrace doors. Thunder rolled over the hotel. The room smelled like leather, smoke, and old paper. She backed away, shears in hand, trying to hear through the walls. Then the terrace door behind the curtains opened. A man stepped in from the rain. He was not there for Cassian. Marlowe saw that immediately. He did not look toward the hall. He looked at her. A professional then. Sent through the side while everyone else chased the obvious prize. Sent because Dorian had understood something Serena had learned too late. Kill Cassian if possible. Kill Marlowe if necessary. The man raised his gun. Marlowe threw the lamp first. It struck his wrist, not hard enough to disarm him, but enough to spoil his aim. The shot hit a shelf behind her and tore through old books. She dropped low, not gracefully, not like women in movies, but fast enough to stay alive. He lunged. She crawled behind the desk. He came around it. Marlowe grabbed the nearest thing her hand found, a brass bookend shaped like a horse, and swung at his knee. He cursed and stumbled. She drove the tailor's shears into his thigh with both hands. The sound he made was worse than the gunshot. Marlowe scrambled back, breath tearing in her throat. He fell against the desk, reaching for her again, but his leg failed him. The library door burst open. Cassian entered like the storm had learned his name. One look at Marlowe, one look at the man bleeding on the carpet, and his face became something she hoped never turned toward her. The attacker did not leave the room conscious. Afterward, when the shooting stopped and the storm kept beating the glass, Cassian found Marlowe sitting on the floor behind the desk, still holding the shears. Her hands were red, her dress was torn, her eyes were dry, which seemed to worry him more than tears would have. He crouched slowly in front of her, careful not to touch. "Marlowe, I ruined your carpet," she said. His jaw tightened. "Look at me." She did. For the first time since she had met him, Cassian Vey looked frightened. Not for himself. That was the part that changed the room. "They came for you," he said. "Yes. I should have moved you somewhere safe." Something in her closed at that. "No." He went still. Marlowe's voice shook, but it did not break. "Do not start deciding where I belong because someone tried to hurt me. I am trying to keep you alive. So was every man who ever told a woman to stay quiet, stay home, stay small, stay grateful." She swallowed hard. "Don't make protection sound like a prettier cage." Cassian did not answer. Rain ran down the windows. Far away, sirens wailed, though whether they belonged to police Cassian owned or police Cassian had not yet bought, Marlowe did not know. At last he lowered his head, just slightly. Not enough to look weak, enough to show he had heard her. "You are right," he said. The words surprised her so much she almost dropped the shears. Cassian looked up again. "Tell me what you want." Marlowe breathed once, then again. The answer came slowly, but it came clean. "I want Dorian's men to stop coming because they're paid. So don't answer bullets with more bullets first. Take away the money." By sunrise, the Black Lantern became a bank, a courtroom, a confession booth, and a battlefield without firing another public shot. Marlowe's records showed which accounts paid Dorian's crews, which shell companies cleaned the money, which judges protected the warrants, which union men moved the crates, and which casino payouts disguised transfers. Cassian made the calls. Nico carried them out. Marlowe sat beside the speakerphone with bandaged hands and corrected account numbers when men lied. Dorian's empire did not explode. It emptied. His soldiers found their payments frozen. His bribed officials discovered their names in files delivered to enemies who would use them better than police ever could. His captains learned he had been skimming from their hazard pay to fund Serena's private escape plan. His safe houses were locked before his men arrived. His boats were seized by dock crews suddenly loyal to Cassian again. By 10 in the morning, Dorian Vale was not a prince of a rival family. He was a young man with no cash, no trust, no sister, no safe road out, and a room full of men wondering why they should die for someone who had already robbed them. Cassian did not kill him publicly. That would have made Dorian a story. Instead, Dorian disappeared into the kind of quiet that swallowed men who built their lives on noise. Serena Vale was traded 3 weeks later for shipping routes, judges, and peace written in signatures no newspaper would ever see. Blaze Kincaid lost his floors, his clubs, and the right to speak Cassian's name without permission. Rowan Pike was found in a motel outside the state, alive, shaking, and very eager to explain who had paid him. The city settled because money settled first. Months passed before Marlowe went back to the laundry floor, not to work, to visit. The heat hit her first, then the smell of clean cotton and soap. Rosa looked her up and down, taking in the tailored black coat, the neat shoes, the quiet guard waiting by the elevator. Then she snorted and handed Marlowe a stack of pillowcases. "You're standing there like a guest," Rosa said. "Fold something." So Marlowe did, her hands remembered. Fold, press, stack, corners aligned, edges clean. For a few minutes, she was exactly where she had started, and nothing like the woman who had once believed staying invisible was the safest life she could earn. The workers watched her with open curiosity now, some with pride, some with envy, some with caution. Marlowe understood all of it. She had not become smaller to make them comfortable, and she had not become cruel to prove she was no longer small. When she returned upstairs, Cassian was waiting near the highest table in the private casino room. Not the public floor, where tourists lost money under chandeliers, but the old room behind the black doors, where city decisions were made over cards no one played for fun. Men stood when she entered, not because she was Cassian's decoration, not because she wore jewels. She wore none. They stood because everyone in that room knew stories now, the tonic, the tray, the storm, the accounts. They knew Cassian Vey had survived because the laundry woman had noticed what experts missed. They knew the Vale family had cracked because she read invoices like confessions. They knew dangerous men had trained themselves not to see her, and she had used that blindness like a key. Cassian pulled out the chair beside him. Not behind him, not lower, beside him. Marlowe sat. For a moment, she looked out over the room and let herself feel the strangeness of it. The girl who had sat in clinic chairs translating medical words for her mother. The woman who had counted sheets because numbers made more sense than people. The employee who had walked through rooms full of murder talk with a towel cart and a lowered gaze. She was still all of them. That was what mattered most. Power had not arrived because she had become thinner, louder, sharper, or easier to admire. It had arrived because patience was a weapon when aimed properly. Because memory mattered. Because quiet people heard the things loud people missed. Because the world had mistaken softness for absence. Cassian leaned slightly toward her. "You are thinking too much." "I'm at a table full of criminals," she said. "Thinking seems polite." His mouth curved. "And what do you see?" Marlowe looked around the room, at the man sweating near the far wall because his shipping report was false, at the woman smiling too brightly because she had expected Marlowe to wear diamonds and look foolish, at Nico standing near the door, calm as ever, but with one hand resting near his jacket because old habits kept everyone alive. Then she looked at Cassian. He was still feared. He always would be. The city had not turned gentle because Marlowe Bell sat near the top of it, but something in his rule had changed. Not softened, focused. He no longer trusted only fear. He trusted observation. He trusted restraint. He trusted the woman who had once held water to his mouth and waited for him to choose whether to drink. "I see a lot of men trying not to look nervous," she said. "Are they failing?" "Badly." Cassian's eyes warmed. "Then we begin." The meeting started. Money moved. Lies were offered and corrected. Threats were made without being shouted. Men who had once ignored Marlowe now watched her hands when she opened a file. They watched her face when they gave an answer. They feared Cassian's silence, but they had learned to fear Marlowe's memory. That was wiser. Later, after the room emptied and the city lights burned gold beneath the windows, Marlowe remained beside him. The casino hummed below. Somewhere far beneath them, laundry machines turned through another night, washing away wine, sweat, perfume, blood, and all the little evidence rich people left behind when they thought the world existed to clean up after them. Cassian looked at her, quiet for once, without calculation. "Do you regret seeing the cup?" Marlowe thought about that, about fear, about violence, about the library floor and the shears in her hands, about the office full of ledgers, the private elevator, the chair beside his, the strange burden of being seen by a man who could ruin cities but had learned, with her, to ask before reaching. "No," she said, "but sometimes I miss when the worst thing in my day was a wine stain." Cassian laughed softly. "I can arrange a wine stain." "I'm sure you can." His hand rested on the table between them. He did not reach for her. He never did without waiting. That, more than all the money and fear in the building, told Marlowe what had truly changed. Cassian Vey could command almost anyone, but with her, he had learned the shape of permission. After a moment, Marlowe placed her hand over his. Below them, the black lantern glowed in the dark, full of secrets, music, cards, whispers, debts, and men who believed power lived only in guns, names, blood, and fear. They were not completely wrong, but they were not completely right either. Power also lived in the woman who noticed the bitter smell under lemon. The woman who remembered her mother's medicine, the woman who saw trembling hands, false invoices, stained gloves, nervous laughter, missing towels, and money trails folded inside ordinary paper. The woman who had been trained by the world to move quietly, then used quiet like a blade. Cassian Vey remained the most feared mafia boss in the city. But Marlo Bell became the person even feared men checked the room for. And together, at the highest table of the casino that never slept, they ruled by the truth everyone else had learned too late. The most dangerous person in any room is often the one everyone taught themselves not to see.